In the month of November, most people don't realize that it is National Adoption Awareness Month. This month is actually when more children in foster care will be adopted than any other month of the year. This month is also when Reese and I actually adopted two of our five kids. You know, the Saturday before Thanksgiving is actually a National Adoption Day. And it is where in the United States that the actual court systems will open up on a Saturday and they will put on crowns and have balloons and give out stuffed animals. But the most important thing is that they will sign adoption papers for children to have their forever family. You know, it's something I write about in my book, A Forever Family. It's something that every single one wants, every child wants. But what I'm absolutely loving about this month is that I'm actually partnering up with my amazing friends at Barely Canadian. Barely Canadian is a high quality design clothing company. They have everything you can imagine when it comes to clothes, hoodies, sweatshirts, polo shirts. You wait till you see it. I'm going to be doing a fashion show with all my Barely Canadian clothes. But what I love is that when you go on to Barely Canadian site, and by the way, this is one of their shirts. I love the brightness of the colors. Everybody who knows me knows orange is my favorite color. So that's why my friend Kelly sent this to me. But guess what? When you go on and you buy any of their products, whether it's a t-shirt, whether it's a hoodie, whether it's, one of their long sleeve shirts, which is, by the way, they have a zip up hoodie that I love. The hoodie they have pulled such a soft material. They are actually donating a Comfort XL. As I said, these are actually retailed for $148. This is a 32-inch duffel bag. So every single time you go onto their website for the month of November, we will actually they will purchase for us a Comfort XL. They'll be sent to us, and then we give them free to any child who's entering foster care. So, Barely Canadian, let's kick this off. And everybody, please do me a big favor. Go over and buy that sweatshirt, that hoodie, that jumper. I mean, yeah, they actually have jumpers as well. Do me a favor, make a difference in a child's life in foster care. Well, you know what? It's so hard to believe that we are almost at the end of October. And by the way, for all of you that showed me the birthday love last week, I cannot thank you enough. 58 times around this sun was amazing. My family made it absolutely incredible. Yes, I was traveling as usual, but it was nice that, I had celebration prior and then celebration when I got home. We're coming up to National Adoption Awareness Month. It is the month where more children in foster care actually get adopted than any other month of the year. It's also the month where two of our five children, my husband and I, we actually adopted as well. I think that every single month we should strive to make sure that we keep families intact. And for those families that we can't, we need to make sure that we fast track as many kids as we can into adoption because every child deserves permanency. One of the things that I'm excited with in November, and by the way, we'll be making a big announcement about this in about a week if you go over to our website. But this year, we're doing something a little different. This year, I'm actually partnering up with someone very, very special. She's a big surprise, so I'm not going to say who her name is, but we're actually going to do a coat drive. That's exactly right. We are actually going to collect winter coats and we're going to be giving them out to several agencies. Our goal is about 300 coats right here in the local DC area and do something a little different, shake it up a little bit. I know I've seen kids' faces in foster care when they get that new coat and especially the puffy ones. And so we're real excited. But you know what? I'm really excited about my next guest. I am so lucky that I actually get to call Jamie my friend. I've known her and her husband for years. They have got to be the most generous people I have ever met. The fact is that Jamie's husband's very successful, and I always get so in awe by people who were so successful, but they still take it and they bring it to their community to make sure they empower their community. And that's exactly what they've done with their charity. And, I've been lucky enough to be on Jamie's podcast, but what I'm here today to talk about is Jamie's new book, Vanishing Fathers. Oh my gosh, it is a must read, a must read. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my friend, Jamie Truman.
Thank you so much. What an intro. That is so sweet. I know. We are in awe of you guys. Gosh, it's been a few years since we had an event for comfort cases, but I do have to say the feedback that I got when you were on my podcast from people was overwhelming. You were having everyone in tears listening to, your story and what you and your husband have been able to create with comfort cases.
Yeah, I don't even think we had adopted our fifth child at that point.
No, you hadn't.
No, so we might have to come back because we have a fifth child now. But
I know.
before we get into the book, I just have to say, and I want people to know, our viewers and our listeners, is, the fact that you guys have actually collected and donated over $2 million to charities. I love what you say when you say you bring good people together and good things happen. And you were exactly right about that. What made you and your husband decide to do this?
Oh gosh. So, it's a little bit different. So when I first started, giving back into different organizations was way back before I had met my husband. My father had passed away. He had AIDS, and after he passed away, I wanted to do something in his memory. And so I decided to, I don't know why I decided to do this because I probably had I'd ran around like a cul-de-sac maybe once or twice, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to run a marathon for the Whitman Walker Clinic in DC. And they helped people that were living with HIV and AIDS in the DC area. So after I ran that, I decided that I was like, other people train for different marathons so they can help raise money for different causes that really meant something to them. So I was doing that throughout my 20s. And then I had met my husband, and he had just ran for Man of the Year for LLS, which is the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So his grandfather had passed away on his dad's 6th birthday from leukemia, and he wanted to do something in his honor. So he did Man of the Year. He came in second place. He did amazingly well. And then after that, one of his friends was in remission from leukemia. She was doing, I don't know if you've heard of this, Light the Night Walk. They do it once a
Yes,
year.
yeah, yes.
It's yeah, in Rockville. And she said, Jerry, can you be a sponsor? And he said, absolutely. He's like, but let me see what I can do a little bit more. So he's like, I'm gonna have host something at the house and just kind of put a bowl out for checks and cash or how much you ever want to give. And he raised about, $8,000 that night. And he kept hearing from people that night. He's like, I really want to give back, but I don't really know how or where to go. And Jerry thought, this is a great avenue to get people involved in different charities. And it's a great way to get more people involved and aware of what's going on in the community. So that was, 15 years ago. And now, we have amazing board members. It's a 100% volunteer based organization. And as you mentioned, like we've raised a little over $2 million.
That is so amazing. It's so amazing. And the one thing that you say, and I agree 100%, we can't expect our communities to do something if we don't educate them. And,
Hmm.
it's something that I preach all over the country as a public speaker is that, it's like for me growing up in foster care, for so long I blamed my community. But when I got older and started really learning, I realized that my community wasn't educated about kids in foster care. And once you're educated, then that's when you do not get a pass. And so I love that. Well, listen, I want to jump right into this book.
Okay.
Not like you have nothing else on your plate. You're a mom, and you're a mom of little ones, by the way, compared to mine are all teenagers now. But you run this amazing organization, but then you decided to write this book called Vanishing Fathers. And I have to know, the first thing I have to ask is, when did you wake up and said this book is going to happen?
So it's interesting because I had mentioned my father previously about why I decided to start, kind of giving back and learning about more about what's going on in the community. So I had grown up, and my father was had substance abuse issues and was in and out of jail, was incarcerated most of the time that I was younger. And so he was absent for the majority of my upbringing. However, I never thought it really had, I knew it had an impact on myself and I knew it had an impact on our family, but I didn't understand the impact of it societally. And it wasn't until, so we doing Truman Charities and talking to all of these different nonprofits because we have three different events per year and learning about why some of the reasons that, there's a large substance abuse issue in youth and, women being exploited. And I kind of saw it an underlying that was an issue. But it wasn't until I started the podcast in 2021. And I've interviewed, gosh, I don't know, like over 120 people or something at this point. And most of those people, they're thought leaders in the community, but they're all, mostly nonprofits. And it just kept coming up over and over again, like no father, no father. And so I thought, let me dive a little deeper into this. Let me go through a few months, get statistics, and see if what I'm thinking is actually what a large cause is for a lot of societal issues. And I was right. And it was. And these statistics were staggering. It was like 71% of high school dropouts don't have a dad. 71% of children with substance abuse issues, youths don't have a father. 90% of homeless youths don't have a dad. 70% of exploited women. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so I thought,
Look at the number of kids, look at the number of people on death row. I mean, we
yes,
know that the number of people on death row, we're up to close to 90% who didn't have a dad.
yes, yes. Incarceration rates. It kept going. And so I thought, what's a good way to tell people? And I love storytelling. So I thought, what's the best way to have these statistics in, but other people's stories? So when people can read it, they can maybe uh identify or have similarities with someone and see that they were able to had a dad that was absentee or a dad with substance abuse and they were able to overcome it and become wonderful husbands and fathers themselves. And so I interviewed some really interesting people for the book from all different backgrounds to share their stories, mostly males, but I did interview two women as well.
I love this. I absolutely love this. And so in 2019,
Hmm.
Dallas Howard came to my agent and wanted to do a documentary called Dads. And the reason that she wanted to do this documentary is because she truly felt that so many times dads do get a bad rap. And so she actually picked my husband and I to be in this documentary. It's on Apple. It's called Dads. With Ron Howard and just talking to us about, what it was like because you hit the nail on the head. Okay. My husband and I, we're celebrating 20 years in about 4 months. My husband grew up with a father that was in the picture all the time, like literally from the day he was born. And he was a very active father. I mean, loves, worships my son. I mean, I grew up just the opposite. No male role models in my life, no true person. Even the dads that were supposedly there, they weren't dads. They, were there. I was there for a paycheck, or, they were drug addicts and alcoholics. I mean, it was just awful. And I remember when my children arrived, and I actually write about this in my memoir. I remember my husband looking at our son, who's now 17. He was 2 at the time, and how jealous I was because I could immediately see that connection, and I didn't know how to do that connection because I had never seen that connection. And so I do think that we don't realize what trauma we have even as an adult and successful, because I didn't have a dad role model.
Yeah, and I saw it's we have some similarities there because my husband, grew up same, had this wonderful father that's very involved. They're still best friends. And I can just see the way that my husband is with our children, and it's so beautiful, but it's so natural to him too.
Yeah, yeah, it's and that, and like I said, I mean, it took a long time for me to actually explain that to him about the jealousy of it. So many, yeah, for me, foster care is everything. I eat, breathe, and sleep. And so many kids who we see in our foster care system, they're the absentee dads. It's always on the mother's shoulders. It's, the mother's having to provide, and the mothers end up losing their kids because of that neglect word. And if they had that man who stood up and took the role that he should, and mind it, I'm a dad of five kids. There's five different dads. And by the way, my phone has never rang. Okay. My phone has never rang in 15 years. And the fact is that we allow this in society. Why do you think that is?
Wow. I actually interviewed Dr. Leonard Sachs, and so he had a chapter in his book talking about the way that we look at fathers now and the way that we used to look at them back in, say, like the 80s. Look at uh some of the shows that used to be on, and the father was, the mom and the dad, they came in, and mother knows best but father knows best too, and it was kind of both of them together, and the parents were, the hierarchy in the family. And now you look at some of the shows now, and I think that they're depicted more of like these kind of stumbling idiots, and that they're not really all that necessary within the family unit. I don't think that children are told, young boys are told just how important they are.
Yeah.
I think that there needs to be more of, I think it needs to be told to them a lot and more frequently. And especially, I grew up with a single mom, and I knew how difficult that was for her. And I think that little boys have to understand that you are just as important as they are, and you can't leave, because if you do, look what may happen. I mean, that, we want it to be the exception where the child grows up, it doesn't have any of these issues. But generally, when you look at the statistics, they are much more inclined to have a lot of these, issues with substance abuse, and not and dropping out of school and things like that when you choose not to be in their lives. And I don't think that they know the impact that they actually
Yeah.
have on
Yeah.
a child. It's not very much instilled in them, I think, enough.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. And I can only go by, my lived experience and
Hmm.
my children's lived experience. But now that, I talk to so many kids across the country, they always say to me, why did my dad give up on me?
Hmm.
And even I remember when we stood in the courtroom for the adoption of our children, it was the only time that the birth parent, the birth father showed, and they only showed to sign their rights away. And they were like, okay, bye. And so what my husband and I did is we promised that we would never change one of our phone numbers. And we gave it to them, and we said, whenever you're ready, give us a call and be a part of the life. And now that my children are older, we're starting to talk a little bit more about it. They're starting to open up about it. But the
Hmm.
crazy part about it is my 6 month old at the time, he's now 15, he never once brings it up, because in his eyes he has two dads, and life is great. But I have a friend of mine, and your book, I sent your book to her because she is in her early 50s, and she didn't have a dad in her life, and she just doesn't seem to be able to get over that. She seems to bring it. As you were researching this, did you see a lot of that as well? Is that people just sometimes just can't find the grit?
Yeah, it's hard, because what you don't understand, a lot of people don't understand is a lot of the problems that they may have in their adulthood is from, some of the things that happen in their childhood that they're just kind of pushing down. And it takes a while for them to really kind of open up and see that the connection between the two.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. And I think, that's why I say it all the time. I love Dr. Rich, my therapist that I see every Monday. I think that he is amazing. And I tell people to do it. The one thing about this book, and everybody, let me tell you something. There's two things about this book that I got. Number one, I got out of this, I could relate. And it's so nice when you read a book and you can relate. It's a fast reader, by the way. So if you're looking for a
Yes.
book to last you, no, you're going to pick it up and you're not going to want to set it down, and you're going to be done with it in 3 to 4 days, and you're going to have to go on to the next one. But the thing that I absolutely love that you did is that when someone buys this book, you actually are donating the proceeds to charity.
Mhm. So since the debut in March, we've raised close to $80,000 for charities that help at-risk youths. So I wanted this to not only educate people and to make them feel like they have finally like read other stories where someone else understands, but also the money to help, youths that are going through this, not having a father.
I love, let me tell you something. I know and by the way, you and your husband, you actually self-published this book.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I have to tell you, I know people that are signed with like companies like Simon and Schuster, and they haven't sold $80,000 worth of books. So, you guys, you knocked it out of the park. Listen up, everybody. There, you're gonna have a link right here. You'll be able to go and order the book. I say this all the time. The greatest gift that you can give to an author is write a review.
Yes.
Truly write a review. Once you've read the book, write a review. And then the other thing I always remind all of you is that there's no such thing as the used book. So once you have loved it in your mind, you loved it in your heart, then pass it on. Okay. Pass it on to the next person, but remind that person to give a gift. And that gift is a review. Jamie, I'm telling you, it's
Thanks.
always so nice to catch up with you.
Of course.
Where can they find you on your podcast?
Oh, just Truman Charities podcast on all podcast platforms. And then also the people that are in the book, I have a series, Vanishing Fathers series. So you can listen to their interviews as well. And those are episodes 93 or 94 through 103.
That's awesome. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, you can
And
listen
by
as
the way,
well.
they can also sign up for your newsletter and
Yes.
find out when you have your charity
Hmm.
gatherings,
Hmm.
because those are absolutely amazing. It's a great time to not only give back to your community, but it's a great time to connect with people maybe that you wouldn't have connected with. So, once again, this is the book, Vanishing Fathers. Do me a big favor. Get the book today and then send me an email. I'd love to know what you think because I absolutely loved it. And once again, this is another episode of Fostering Change. Take care, everybody.